there. We have Michael Coyne, our legal expert, on the phone. Michael, Judge Coyne did say that they would reconvene July 22nd at 2 p.m. to figure out what comes next. So you tell us, what comes next in something like this?
Well, the prosecution will have to decide whether they want to retry her or not, and I expect that they will decide to retry her. It's the death of a police officer, and the prosecution feels strongly that their case is correct, that they've got the right defendant. And so then the question becomes, will the defense attorneys be able to come back? Can they fit it into their schedule? The financial issue becomes a question as well. And then ultimately, how do their schedules all work as to when this might be retried? There's always the possibility that the government might decide not to pursue a second trial. I don't think that's likely. There's also an unlikely possibility that they could strike a deal as well. Again, I think that's an unlikely possibility here, JC.
Let me just ask you, how much say does the O'Keefe family have when it comes to the prosecution's decision whether or not to retry?
Not a lot. I think obviously the district attorney would take into account their feelings, but either whether they were strongly one way or the other wouldn't necessarily be dispositive. As the chief law enforcement officer for Norfolk County, he has a responsibility to everyone involved to really take a hard look at the case and see whether it makes sense to go forward again.
All right, Michael, joining me now on the set is Glenn Jones. Glenn, as you heard, that has been declared officially a mistrial, which is where we were leading based on the jury's note to Judge Coyne on Friday late in the day, and then this morning, and then here we are, 2:30, they came in and declared yes.
I suppose at this point we can't be entirely surprised that this is where things ended, especially with how eloquent and articulate the notes were from the jury. And here we go. I expect, as Michael Coyne just said, that we'll be here doing this again because, of course, there is a victim in this case and there's no accountability yet for his death.
Michael, are you still with us on the phone? Michael,
I am, JC.
I just wanted to ask you, and this is a Monday morning quarterback kind of question, but it's also just off the top of your head. This was a 9-week trial with more than 70-plus witnesses. If this were to be retried, could we think that the prosecution might have the ability to cut that in half and perhaps take a slightly different approach to this?
I think you're absolutely right. If it's tried again, they have to cut it in half. They have to boil it down to the essential parts of the case as they see it, which should be the excessive drinking, the driving, and then obviously tying his death more closely to her actions than they did in this case, in all likelihood. The fact is that the jury must have struggled with some of these issues, and so the government gets a chance to have a do-over here and fix the mistakes they made. To me, this is a win for the government simply because the defendant's resources were likely drained at this point. Most of us thought that this would likely be a not guilty verdict. So to have the chance to correct the mistakes that we saw during the first trial, this is, if they're going to retry her, they all, in almost all likelihood, will have a significantly different case that will be mightily pared down from the last case.